Mattel has now brought out a Barbie doll that is supposed to demonstrate the features of an autistic child. Now, many of you know I have a son with autism, and I read this and yet again rolled my eyes and thought, here we go, simplifying what autism actually is, and particularly the challenges faced by people and the families of people with profound autism. Mattel has brought out a Barbie that has a fidget spinner. It has a iPad, but it's actually an augmented communication tool, and has the Barbie wearing headphones, which a lot of people with autism do use to block out sensory overwhelm and loud noises. None of that is particularly incorrect for a lot of people with autism, but it certainly doesn't symbolise autism in its totality and doesn't represent the spectrum of it. And I really do feel for a lot of families with kids with profound autism who see this and think, I just wish the only challenges I had to deal with I could solve by putting a pair of earphones on or having a fidget spinner. That is not the reality of it. Yeah. And, you know, when we talk about the NDIS and we talk about that a lot of blowouts and the fact that there are so many kids on the NDIS now with autism spectrum disorder, and if fixing it was a pair of headphones and a fidget spinner, then we probably wouldn't have the blowouts we have. It's a lot more complex than that. Look, having it visible is one thing, but I think having it simplified can actually cause more problems when it comes to the families having to deal with the real and genuine challenges. And again, I'm on fire tonight. I'll get in trouble here. The people with autism, in the sense that autism always was before the DSM-5, where now if you've got a slight global developmental delay, in Australia only, you have autism because the NDIS exists.
And they've given it sort of movable hands and arms as well. So, it's called stimulation, where people do stuff like this is to sort of like calm themselves down. Yeah. I mean, for goodness sake, look, the number one job of Mattel or any other corporation is to push product, right? And that's fine. They're in that business. If they think that producing a Barbie doll that looks like an autistic person is going to sell product, good for them. What annoys me is that they then wrap that up as, it's about representation. Oh,
aren't we warm and
aren't we being good citizens of the world?
I think exactly, it's all about sales. If they really cared about children with autism, wouldn't they put money in investment into therapies and treatment and actually donate to charities or foundations who actually help families and children, rather than making it a marketing campaign, which ultimately they want the social media buzz, they want the headlines, we're talking about it, they want the sales. That's what it's all about, but dressed up as virtue.
They also, if they wanted to do that, I think it's a great idea, and give the money in the US to Autism Speaks and Autism Awareness Australia and the really good preeminent bodies. Instead, they use the Autism Self-Advocacy Network, which for those of us that work in the space, look, for people with profound autism, they'd love to be able to advocate for themselves, but unfortunately their autism is too much of a disability. There are people with very, very high functioning autism, used to be called Asperger's, that run a lot of these self-advocacy networks. And of course, the voices of those who can't advocate for themselves are far too often drowned out. So, you know, I just feel like they're just missing the mark yet again.
They're the sort of people who think a Barbie doll will solve everything, right?
Yeah.
And they've done it. I think they did a Down syndrome one, and they've done an amputee Barbie, and they say, because the kids they're so upset that they can't see a Barbie doll.
But the whole point about
like
autism, it's an invisible disability. Like that's the whole point. The other thing that that's been brought out now are lanyards that have got the sunflowers on them to show invisible disability. Like I had a staffer who was...
Is that what it means?
Yeah, so I had a staffer who had autism, and he had one, and it's actually to demonstrate an invisible disability. So it's really there. So, a lot of our kids with autism, you couldn't tell to just look at them walking down the street, but if you kind of pay a bit of close attention, you'll notice their behaviours are maybe a little bit odd, or they're doing a few things weird that don't sort of look like general, normal ways that people conduct themselves in public. And that's what the lanyard's there for, to identify the invisible disability. Because having a kid with an invisible disability is really hard, because you've actually got to tell people that's why they're doing what they're doing, as opposed to something that's obviously physically visible to see.
Well, you've got a Barbie doll now, so problems all solved, it would seem.